I built this place not with bricks or steel, but with nights that never ended and hands that shook from too much coffee and not enough sleep back, when cloud computing sounded like something farmers worried about, and my office was a storage room with one flickering bulb in rural Washington. I am Daniel Hayes, an American kid who believed that work done right eventually protects itself. I know this building like a body. I know how the air hums on the top floors because I approved the plans myself. I know why the lobby carpet is slate gray because it hides stains and pride equally well. I know which elevator shakes just a little because the contractor cut a corner. But today I was not Daniel Hayes, founder of Meridian Logic. Today I was Danny at Temp Facilities, a borrowed uniform that smelled like lemon cleaner and someone else's exhaustion hair, stuffed under a cap, hands rough, name tag crooked, no watch, no title, just a mop that squealed like it was dying. I went undercover because something felt wrong. I stepped away years ago, trusting the machine to keep breathing. But whispers reached the board, whispers of fear and arrogance and cruelty, dressed up as ambition. You do not fix rot. From the penthouse you find it where it grows, so I took the service elevator, elevator B, the glass one with the view reserved for people who forget who cleans the glass. I stepped in holding a spray bottle. Like a shield, the doors opened on the 12th floor. Marketing and strategy. The smell changed instantly from wax to tension, from lemon to money, panic. 3 young men stepped inside, sharp suits, empty eyes, confidence, borrowed from parents and titles. The loudest one led. His name was Carter. I would learn that later. He talked like someone quoting success instead of earning it, talking about dominance and space and being loud enough to matter. He spun mid-sentence. The coffee lid failed physics. The drink exploded, brown foam everywhere, wall, rail, floor. It splashed my boots. Silence, heavy silence. I stood still. In another life someone would rush in another life. Carter would apologize. But this life saw me as furniture. Carter sighed, checked his watch, did not look at me. He said, "Clean it up, janitor," not angry, bored, like ordering a machine before the vice president sees. It looks bad. That moment mattered because I wanted to speak, wanted to peel him open with truth. But I stayed quiet. "Yes, sir," head down, voice small. He stepped over the mess and left. I knelt, wiped coffee from glass I paid for, and promised the walls something was coming. Because when a man shows you who he is, when he thinks you are nothing, you listen. The elevator rose again, and I was no longer cleaning spills. I was collecting proof and the buck. It was about to get very full. That was the moment I realized this was not one bad apple. It was an orchard, and the roots were poisoned by the end of my first week. The uniform stopped feeling like a costume. It felt like camouflage. A gray jumpsuit makes you invisible in America. People will say things in front of you they would never say into a mirror. I was assigned permanently to the 12th floor. Carter's territory. Morning meant emptying bins stuffed with energy drink cans and protein wrappers. Afternoons meant polishing glass walls, while strategy meetings unfolded inches from my face. No one lowered their voice. I was not a person. I was a texture. That is how I learned who Carter really was to people beneath him. He was a wall to people above him. He was a rug. I watched it play out by the printer. One Tuesday, a woman from accounting struggled with a heavy toner box. Quiet, careful, the kind of employee companies survive on and never protect. She asked Carter for help. He looked at her, looked at the box, then at his phone. He said, "Not now." Got a hard stop. Call facilities. He walked away. 10 minutes later, a senior director entered. Carter appeared instantly, smiling, laughing, offering to stir coffee, offering ideas he had not earned. I stood near. By mopping nothing, the contrast made my stomach hurt that night. I went back to my temporary apartment, a cheap place far from the house I actually owned. I sat at a folding table and opened a spiral notebook. I wrote one title, the ROT under it. I wrote names, incidents, patterns, Carter disrespect toward staff, performative loyalty, upward cruelty, downward. The list grew, so did my back pain, my hands cracked from chemicals. But the real damage was watching a place I loved turn hollow on Thursday. I shared an elevator with Carter again. He was on a call bragging, talking about promotions, calling leadership dinosaurs. He saw me, did not mute. He said, "You missed a spot in the conference room table, sticky." I nodded. He went back to his reflection. "These people are sheep." He said into the phone, sheep. That word stayed with me. Wolves mistake silence for weakness. They usually learn too late. I added another line to the notebook. That night, manipulation, threat language, career, climbing through pressure. The break room was worse. It looked like collaboration, but smelled like betrayal. I spent hours under sinks pretending to fix leaks. That is when I heard it. Carter cornered a developer, a smart, quiet guy named Ben, warned him about a rushed update, data instability, real risk. Carter smiled while making espresso, said, "Think like a winner, clients hate delays." Ben pushed back. Carter dropped his voice, said layoffs were coming. Said, "Hope you are not on the wrong list." That was not arrogance, that was extortion. Ben folded, agreed. I stayed under the sink. Long after they left, the dark felt honest. I washed my hands, looked at my face in the chrome fosse. Older, tired, but sharper. That was when I stopped thinking about firing one man. This was not about discipline. It was about extraction. That night, I made a call, not from my real phone, from the one no one questioned. I told internal audit to watch the update, to isolate it, to let failure reveal intent. If Carter wanted to play hero, I would let gravity handle the rest, because ambition without ethics always accelerates itself, and cliffs do not announce when they arrive. I thought I had seen the worst of him, until the day he decided to turn cruelty into entertainment. The third week taught me something important. Cruelty is rarely spontaneous. It is rehearsed. By then I knew Carter's schedule better than he did coffee. At 9 strutting meetings, at 10 loud lunch victory laps, after the 12th floor kitchen was his stage. Open brick, expensive machines, cheap behavior. I was changing a trash bag when he walked in with 2 followers, the kind of guys who laugh half a second late, always checking the leader before reacting. Carter was holding a powdered dough, sugar everywhere. He looked at them, then at me. He smiled. "Watch this," he said. He dropped the dough, not into the trash, onto my head. Powder puffed into my hair. Jelly slid down my neck, warm and sticky and humiliating. They laughed, hands over mouths, like children testing limb. "It's," Carter said. "Oh, my bad, gravity, right." I stood up slowly, met his eyes. "You did that on purpose," I said. For the first time, he looked threatened, just a flicker. He stepped closer, lowered his voice, careful complaints. "Go both ways. You need this job." He read my name tag, "Danny, clean it up, and do not speak unless spoken to." He walked out. I stood there shaking, not scared, focused. I washed the sugar out of my hair, scrubbed my skin raw, looked into the mirror. That was the moment the plan stopped being quiet. I stayed late, pulled camera footage, saved clip time, date, action. Then I went deeper. Expense reports, payroll, bonus, incentives, strip club meals labeled as consultations, forced pushes, email trails. I built a file, named it something simple, the cleanse. Monday morning, an email hit. Every device mandatory, all hands. Founder attending the building. Buzzed heads popped up, whispers moved fast. Carter laughed, called me a history lesson. A relic, said founders belong in museums. I mopped near. By silent, that night, I laid out my real clothes, the suit, the watch, the shoes that change posture. I wrote 3 words on a card: identity, integrity, eviction. Wednesday came gray and sharp. I swiped my real access card. Security noticed. I took the elevator up, changed backstage. When I stepped onto the stage, the sound changed. Heels on wood carry authority. I did not wave, I did not smile. I stared at the front row. Found him. Carter stopped, clapping his face. Drained recognition, hit like cold water. I told them where I had been, what I had seen, who they had become. Gasps, phones lowered. I played the video, the don't. The laughter, the room recoiled. I named his plan, his threats, his files. Security moved as they took him away. I said, one last thing, you missed it. Spot. The door closed. Silence held, then something new. Relief. I spoke to the ones who mattered, the invisible ones. Wages raised, policies changed. The applause came from the back. First, later, in my office. I kept the mop buck, it a reminder, because power that forgets the floor always falls through it. I thought the story was over, but fixing a culture means facing the ones who learned from him. I believed removing Carter would cauterize the wound. I was wrong. You do not cut rot from a tree and expect the roots to apologize. You dig, and digging gets messy. The morning after the all-hands meeting felt different, quieter, like a house after shouting stops. People moved slower. Eyes followed me now, not because they recognized the founder, but because they recognized consequence. I walked the floors again, no suit. This time, no disguise, either just presence. Managers smiled. 2 hard directors spoke carefully. But fear is not reform, it is only delay. The real test came from those who had learned well. Carter was not a lone wolf. He was a graduate. I sat in on reviews, listened more than I spoke. Patterns emerged, interruptions, credit theft, subtle threats dressed as jokes. One director joked about trimming dead weight, another called assistants overhead. The language was clean. The intent was not. That is when I understood culture does not live in policies, it lives in permission. So I took it away. I announced something simple. Every leader would shadow someone. They managed 1 full shift. No phones, no titles. Some resisted, called it symbolic. I smiled. Symbolism scares people who survive on invisibility. I watched a vice president empty trash. Watched a manager answer support calls. Watched faces change. Some softened, some hardened. Those who hardened revealed themselves. One senior lead refused say his time was too valuable. I accepted his resignation quietly. The message traveled faster than any memo. Then came the hearings, closed rooms, open files, stories poured out. Years of swallowed anger, missed promotions, quiet exits. I listened, not as a savior, as a witness. That matters. We rebuilt reporting lines, flattened hierarchies, removed private offices. Power hates light. I reinstated people who had left. Some returned, some had healed elsewhere. I respected both. The building felt different, not happier, healthier. But the hardest part came last. I gathered the facilities team, the ones who saw everything. I apologized, not with a speech, with specifics. I named moments, I named failures. Silence followed, then something better: trust. I kept the mop bucket in my office. People asked why. Because leadership starts on the floor. Weeks past, metrics improved, not just profit, retention, engagement, but numbers were never the goal. One night I stayed late, walked the 12th floor alone. The glass reflected a man older than before, not tired, aware. I thought about Carter, about how small he had been, how loud, how fragile. Power built on humiliation collapses under exposure. That is the lesson. I turned off the lights, left the building quiet. The machine was breathing again, not because of me, but because fear had been replaced with accountability, and accountability does not shout, it endures. Just when I thought the rebuilding was complete, someone from the past knocked on the door and reminded me why the system broke in the first place. The knock came late, after sunset, after most of the building had emptied, and the lights softened into that quiet blue glow that makes offices feel like confessionals. I was alone, reading reports, drinking bad coffee, thinking we had finally turned a corner. The knock came again. Firm, not hesitant, I opened the door. It was Mark, one of the first engineer's garage days, sleeping on couches writing code with me at 3 in the morning. Because we believed in something, he looked older, not tired, worn. He stepped inside and looked at the mop bucket by the window. He smiled, but not kindly. You finally figured it out, he said. I waited. He walked the room, slowly touching the desk, the shelves. The view you remember when we started, he asked, when we said no one would ever feel small here. I nodded. He stopped and faced me. I helped build the systems that let people like Carter rise. Said promotion models, incentives, scorecards. I thought I was optimizing performance. I was actually rewarding cruelty that hit harder than any accusation. Mark sat down, hands folded. When you left, day to day control, we filled the gap with metrics. Metrics do not measure kindness, they measure noise. He told me how leaders learned to game visibility, how aggression read as confidence, how silence got labeled disengagement. We did not lose the culture overnight. He said we trained it out. That was the real betrayal, not one man, but a design flaw. We talked for hours, no anger, only clarity. We pulled up dashboards, rewrote incentives, removed rankings that forced people to cannibalize each other. We replaced them with peer review, with long-term impact, with shared success. It was slow, painful, necessary. Mark stayed not for a title, but to fix what he helped break. Weeks turned into months. People stopped whispering, started speaking. Turnover slowed, then stopped. The building changed again, this time quietly. One afternoon, I rode elevator B, the glass one. A facilities worker stepped in. He nodded, I nodded back. No fear, no distance that mattered. I went back to my office, looked at the bucket, the notebook, the suit hanging untouched. Power had not returned responsibility. Had I realized something? Then leadership is not being known. It is being accountable when you are not. I shut off the lights, locked the door. The machine was not perfect, it never would be. But it was honest, and honesty is the only thing that scales. I thought this was the ending, but every system leaves behind one final test, and mine was still waiting in the shadows. The final test did not arrive loudly. It came as an invitation, a private dinner, old board, new investors, the kind of room where smiles are soft and knives are quiet. I knew what it was. A recalibration. They wanted to know if the storm had passed, if the old rules could return. In cleaner language, I walked into the restaurant, wearing no armor, no suit, no disguise, just myself. They praised the turnaround, retention up, morale up, press kind. Then the questions shifted. One investor leaned back, said culture is important, but growth is king. Another said we must be careful not to overcorrect. Someone said fear can be motivating when applied correctly. I listened. This was the last shadow, not a man, an idea, the belief that people are tools, that pressure replaces respect, that numbers forgive harm. I thought of the mop bucket, the cracked hands, the eyes that never met mine. I told them no, not softly. I said Meridian would never trade dignity for speed, that cruelty disguised as ambition would never be funded here, that growth built on silence collapses. Some shifted, some smiled thinly. One said, then perhaps we are not aligned. I nodded. Alignment without integrity is just agreement with decay. The meeting ended politely. Two investors exited quietly. Capital followed them the next morning. Headlines appeared. Founder pushes values over profit stock. Dipped emails flooded in concern. Braze warnings. I watched the market open, then closed my laptop. The test was never about survival. It was about choice. Weeks passed. Something unexpected happened. New partners reached out, not louder, better people who asked about systems and people in the same sentence, people who understood that trust. Compounds we rebuilt slower, stronger. One afternoon, I walked the building again, not to inspect, to observe. Laughter sounded, real disagreement happened without fear. Facilities staff spoke freely. I rode elevator B. The glass was clean, not because it hid stains, because people respected it. At the lobby, young hire held the door for a cleaner. They exchanged names. That was it, not applause, not profit, not revenge. Proof. I returned to my office. The bucket still sat by the window. I kept it there, not as a trophy, as a warning to myself. Power drifts, attention narrows, memory fades, but the floor always remembers. Before leaving that night, I wrote one final line in the notebook. If you want to know who you are building for, clean beside them. I closed the book, turned off the lights. The machine was not louder, it was kinder. And that is how you know it will last, because somewhere right now, another kid is stepping into an elevator, and the future is listening.